Hi, welcome back to Knits and Lit. This is a monthly yarn podcast hosted by yours truly. I'm KT. I am so excited to have you here for my February recap. February didn't feel like the most productive month. It's really surprising how helpful those last extra 2 to 3 days are in the rest of the months, but I really didn't feel like I got much done in February. I just kind of was lost for direction. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to work on. That being said, I managed to get a little bit done. First, I have block 6 of Celtic Quilt Mystery Knit-Along, Celtic Quilt 4 by Louise O'Neill. This is the 6th block from this Mystery Knit-Along, and it is the 5th one I've knit because I skipped December. I think it turned out really well. I love it. I did have some issues with when you have the decreases, like here where you have the cables returning into the background. You're supposed to do the final decreases on the wrong side, and I always seemed to forget. I just get too in the swing of going on, and I'd have to finagle it on the right side to figure out how I wanted to make that work. Last month, I discussed my very ambitious plans of not only doing the 9 quilt blocks from Celtic Quilt number 4, but doing an additional 7 so I could make a 4x4 sized quilt. I made some progress in that goal, and last month I also finished block 1 from Celtic Quilt number 2. So I chose Celtic Quilt number 2 because unlike the other Celtic quilts that she has released already, it has a lot more lace details, such as these eyelets, as you can see, and I just thought it would make for nice variety of the quilt. So hopefully I will be able to do an additional block once each month from Celtic Quilt number 2, also by Louise O'Neill. But I'm really happy with my progress on this. I am 3 blocks away from having an original 3x3 sized quilt. And that'll be nice. It'll be nice to be able to lay it out and get to see truly how much of a task I've bitten off for myself. And that's really it for finished objects, if you can call just a quilt block a finished object. But like I said, I just wasn't feeling it last month, and you know, I don't find it worth it to force myself. If I'm really pulled in different directions, that's okay. I did get some work done on some of my whips. So first, we have, continuing with the quilts, I have started the 7th block from Celtic Quilt number 4. I'm really having issues with my Q's and Q's, and boy, pardon my language. Just excuse all of the little speaking errors I have. I'm sure they'll be littered throughout the video. Anyways, this is block 7. I so kindly stopped in the middle of a row to make it a nightmare to show. But this one is coming along. I only started a couple days ago. It is March 13th now. I was taking a little break doing 2 quilt blocks last month. I just wasn't super eager to jump right into the next one, though I am really enjoying these cables, and I think this one is promising to turn out just as well as all of the other ones. So I'm very happy with that. Another update on something I mentioned last month, which is my Melted Crayons shawl by Zandy Peters. And so, before I get to that, I will just reiterate, in case you haven't watched my last video, that my Celtic quilt I am making out of Lion Brand Heartland yarns, which is 100% acrylic, but it feels really nice for acrylic, and for such a large quilt that I've chosen to do, I did that to myself. The price is really much more affordable than getting wool. And so, Melted Crayons. I had discussed this last month. This is a pattern by Zandy Peters. It's very psychedelic. And it is... I am knitting this with Kelborn woolen. Sorry, my autocorrect just went off on my computer without me realizing it. Kelborn woolens, perennial in neon pink, and then I believe it is Stone Barn Fibers. Let me see. Stone Barn Fibers Gradient Limeade. And so I had discussed last month how I had frogged this and cast it on again. I have now gotten past the point where I had been when I frogged it, which feels good. It's nice to be making some progress. It's really nice because I'm really starting to see the gradient. We start with the yellows here, and now it is undeniably greener. Perhaps the camera's not picking it up as well, but it is getting to be a nice kind of chartreuse that I really enjoy. The one downside is that I've gotten to the point where the rows are extremely tedious. They're really long, and they're kind of exhausting. I am trying to break it up for me by doing some modifications to the pattern, which you'll have to tell me how you feel about modifying patterns. I'm all for it if it makes the pattern more enjoyable, easier to do. My mother disagreed. She wanted me to keep the pattern the same as it was, just do this pattern all over. Whereas I have chosen about 7 repeats away from center back. I am just doing straight garter stripes, and I think it looks nice. Pardon me. I did put in a lifeline in case I change my mind. I can rip it back and start over, do the pattern all the way across. But for the most part, it's hard to tell. I've only done 2 repeats of the pattern with just the stripes, but I think I like it. It's makes it go a little bit faster at least, which is always helpful. I think if I didn't change it, I'd be very tempted to put this down and not pick it up again for a very long time, possibly ever, which, you know, really, I'm trying to be a lot better this year about finishing things, and whatever makes it easier for me to finish something, I am going to try. And then for whips, I also have some work done, here it is, on my Nightingale sweater by Nora Gone. This is also knit in Lion Brand Heartland Yarns, and it's not a whole lot. I've really just done the ribbing on the front panel of the sweater. I'm ready to start knitting from the pattern diagram, and I'll get to do some very lovely cables. I've just been doing so many cables with my Celtic quilt blocks that I haven't been super enthused to pick this up at the moment. I'd rather work on the Celtic quilt blocks, to be honest. But I'm happy to get this going again. It's really kind of my first sweater. I've knit a cardigan before. That was fairly easy. I used a very bulky yarn for it. This is kind of my first, like, nice sweater though. So what I ended up doing a lot of last month was a lot of very small knitting experiments. I did find my knitting mojo again near the end of February, and but instead of really working on any of my projects, what I was interested in was casting on new things and experimenting. I am not a knitwear designer in any stretch of the word, but I am interested in design. I have this idea for a shawl with lace work, but I'm really not familiar with lace. So just using, again, this is some green baby fingering weight yarn that I used in my West Knits Mystery Knit Along of unknown manufacturer. And I used that to cast on and practice some different lace patterns. These are not my lace patterns, and they don't look great because they haven't been blocked, so they haven't really opened up, and this yarn is really probably too bouncy for lace anyways. But I practiced some lace, and then I started experimenting with lace, trying to see if I could figure out how to get the effect that I wanted. Not really successful, but I like to keep my little swatches until I need to actually use them. So I'll keep this until I need the yarn for something else, and then I'll just unwind it and incorporate it into its final destiny. So I have that. I think I had another little swatch of lace here where I was trying to experiment with making a circular lace pattern. Again, not very successful. Fun though. And then finally I have an experiment. I'm not gonna go out and say it's a whip yet because I really don't know the trajectory of this project. It's mostly just an experiment. I am attempting to kind of improv a sweater, which we'll see how it goes. I'm lucky enough to live by a secondhand craft store, which recently acquired the estate of a fiber artist who passed away, and it included a lot of hand-spun yarn. And I ended up getting roughly 1,000 yards of this hand-spun. It is pink and blue and purple. It's very fun, So I got about 1,000 yards of this. There was more. Unfortunately, I had to buy this in 2 trips using my tip money. So I came back and someone had bought some of the rest of it before I could. So I have about 1,000 yards of this. And it's not the most consistent. It's kind of probably between like a DK to a bulky and varying in between. And I really don't trust that I have enough to make a whole sweater out of this by itself. It's soft, but it's not super soft. So I also thought that it might need something to increase the softness in order to make it something that you could wear next to skin. So I bought some Hobbii Diablo in color 57, which I believe is denim. It's this very nice blue, deep navy. And after some swatches, I am holding 2 strands of the mohair Diablo with 1 strand of the hand-spun. And I have cast on a sweater, though it doesn't look like one at the moment. I am hoping to make this a raglan sweater. Again, doesn't really look like it. With lace cutouts for the shoulders and arms, which will be knit just in the plain Diablo. While I was doing this, I came up with a lot of confusing decisions I had to make. And I'm not sure if I've made the correct decisions at all. I might make a separate video about this. Suffice to say, I have started this yoke. I'm gonna keep working on it, see where it goes. If it's successful, I'll probably make a second video discussing exactly how this came together. But because I didn't have a whole lot of finished objects to show off, I thought I would showcase one of a finished object that I had made previously. And this is one that I made last year. It is the Seriously Holy pattern by Stephen West. And it is brioche knit with a strand of sock yarn and a strand of Surrey alpaca. I knit mine in Less Traveled Yarns in their Surrey alpaca and one of their sock yarns. I believe the Surrey alpaca color was called So Ponies with an exclamation mark. But I am really happy with how this turned out. It's difficult to convey on camera due to the stripes, but it is really mesmerizing. And the inside is so fluffy. I ran out of yarn at the end. I lost yarn chicken, so I'm a couple rows shorter than the pattern calls for. though I did manage to get the last eyelet in. And I have not blocked my shawl or even woven in all of the edges. I'm not a big finisher. I love starting things. I'm not huge on finishing them. But I do really love this shawl. It took me probably 2 or 3 years to make. I started this in either probably 2019 and I finished it last summer. So I'm a relatively fast knitter. I just have trouble focusing, getting things done. I'd rather start whips and experiments. But I am very proud of this one. Very happy with it. And then I think I just want to talk about books for a little bit. Last month I did not get to read very much, unfortunately. I was a little disappointed with myself, but I'm trying to be kind, exercise self-compassion and understanding. It was my birthday last month, so I did get some new books, even if I didn't read any. One of them being Nora Gaughan's Knitted Cable Source Book. And this book is gorgeous. It's nice and heavy, thick, it feels good. I'm a big fan of cables right now. I'm knitting one of Nora Gaughan's cable sweaters, and I'm a big fan of her work. I haven't really knitted any of it yet, except for the Nightingale sweater that I'm working on right now, but her designs are beautiful, and I really love the issue of Pom Pom that she guest edited. And the book is really nice, very informative, lots of very good, clear photos. So everything you want from a knitting book. I got a second nonfiction book, which I have started, called Narrative Design for Indies, by which they mean indie games. And you may not be able to tell from the production quality of my podcast, I am a media arts student, though I really do have my hand more on the production management side of things. I know how to turn record on and off and zoom in and out, and that's the extent of my skills with an actual camera. Don't get me started on editing software, completely over my head. But something I'm interested in is writing for a variety of mediums, including video games. And so this is a book that really excites me. The little blurb on the bottom, which I find kind of hilarious, is worth your time. So I'm reading it because it's worth my time. And maybe I'll talk more about it once I've finished it. I'm not sure if anybody here would be super interested in narrative design for video game indies, but who knows? I got a couple narrative books as well. I got Whispers in the Woods by Casey Carmine. This is a romance novella, which I'm really very excited for. My mother bought this for me off my Amazon wish list, which was a little embarrassing, but I'm excited to get into it. As well as All the Bad Apples by Moira Foley Dowell, and I believe this was actually one of the novels that Stitch Together Studios used as inspiration for one of their literature mini skein packs that I may even have, except I've dismantled all of the packs and now I just have the loose mini skeins running wild. But it also looks very good. I'm excited to get into this. In terms of books what I've actually been reading, which again wasn't a lot. I was a little just kind of down in February. The weather was kind of a drag. I wasn't feeling the most motivated. I started listening to and reading The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, which honestly I could relate to a lot. Just, having to get out of bed to go to a job, but you're a bug and you don't know how to move. Really, really, really impactful stuff that I relate to a lot. So I've started that. The audiobook is less than 2 hours long and I've only made it halfway through. But again, being easy on myself. I've also started reading The Bloody Chamber, which is a collection of short stories by Angela Carter. She's supposed to be a very good author, who I haven't read anything before. I bought this book, this copy, probably 6 years ago, because the foreword is by Kelly Link, who is my favorite author. And so I'm finally gonna attempt to get into some of these short stories and really see what the fuss is about. And that's all I have for my February recap. Not the most productive month, but you get by. Lots of things happening in the world right now, and I'm really just trying to keep my head up, keep moving on. Trying to stay cheerful, even when it's difficult. And if knitting helps, then I will knit. And if reading helps, I will read. Thank you so much for joining me, listening to me rant and ramble, show off some of my work. I would love to shout out all of my wonderful friends who have watched my last video at my insistence, and my very good friend Gina, who in the last video sat on a muted video call with me just so I could work out the jitters and have someone to make me feel less like a hermit talking to herself in her room, which I am this month, but I'm getting used to it. So, I will see you next month, hopefully, to talk about March and what a month this is going to be. So, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.